but this is why I don't trust critical thinking, because critical thinking is, it's critical until it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You find some subject that you're a fucking chud or a dumbass on, and then you're just exposed as a chud and a dumbass. So that's why I don't even trust my own critical thinking skills.
Sure, sure. Well, and it's always good to keep an open mind, but like as my mom used to say to me, keep an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out, right? So
Oh man.
hello.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, same old. Looks like your camera is loading. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
gonna
give me a
be.
second here.
No problem. Same. All right, Qizmhet. I got a question for you before we begin.
Yeah.
Did you ever have the dishonor of using women's fashion magazines for sexual inspiration as a teenager, or did you grow up in the internet era?
Well, I'm in my 40s, so I mean, it's definitely something that I've done before. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, how about you introduce yourself? We got about 94 people on YouTube. We got 22 people on Twitch. Thank you to everybody for being here. This is my buddy Qizmhet. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, what your political background is, and then also what you wanted to discuss tonight. And then I'm gonna get you on my full camera. Oh my God, let's do this. And then, sorry, 1 second.
Oh, you're good.
Display capture. I'm a boomer, so you're gonna have to forgive me. But it's done.
I'm
It,
doing
it's done,
I'm doing
and
the
you can
same thing
introduce
right
yourself.
now too, actually. So, let's see here. All right. My name is Qizmhet. I guess a heathen leftist is what most people would consider me.
Fair.
But I think that like my guiding principles, my axioms are empathy and critical thinking, and I think that there are a lot of people on both sides that have those abilities. I just typically align more with leftist values. And
Yeah, and no,
just
go ahead.
real quick, you can find me. It's Vertigo Veritas TV on Twitch, as well as YouTube.
Okay, awesome. And then you specifically use the term heathen. Do you view yourself as like particularly like anti-religious
I guess
or
that's kind of a joke. Well, I am okay. So I used to be a lot more of a hardcore atheist. I guess I've softened in my old age a bit. I would consider myself much more of an agnostic these days. Because I think it's one of those things where there's no way to tell one way or another. So why would I make any definite claims one way or another whether there was a God or not? So that's
Yeah,
where I can kind of stand
100%.
up.
Oh no, cool. That's I think that's based. I think we all go through like a fucking um religion isn't real, God's not real, fuck you, fedora phase. So the fact that it's evolved into a little bit of a more chill version of that is cool. I appreciate
Sure.
that.
Well,
But yeah.
I'm not a. I
Mhm.
used to be a big fan of Richard Dawkins until I found out what an asshole he was. So it's not somebody that I'm a big fan of
See,
anymore either.
see that, but this is why I don't trust critical thinking, because critical thinking is, it's critical until it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You find some subject that you're a fucking chud or a dumbass on, and then you're just exposed as a chud and a dumbass. So that's why I don't even trust my own critical thinking skills.
Sure, sure. Well, and it's always good to keep an open mind, but like as my mom used to say to me, keep an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out, right? So
Nice.
so seriously, so that's the thing though, is you just kind of want to you want to expose yourselves to many different points of view, and then use your empathy, your critical thinking, whatever you want to call it, and your ability to discern from past experiences, the best way to uh, view those things, I guess, to have takes on those things. So that's typically what I do. The name of my channel, is Vertigo Veritas TV. It's kind of like in this world, it's like so confusing to figure out what the truth is these days, and so the channel is kind of a journey to discover what exactly the truth of every matter is.
Yeah, 100%. And then if I remember correctly, oh shit, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, okay, that's just my headset. Basically, what I would say is, I think you DM'd me about electoralism and electoral politics in particular.
Yeah,
Um, I,
absolutely.
I have been, I have been like super strongly blackpilled about like electoralism recently, but I wouldn't mind hearing what you have to say on that. And then flexibly, just saying like we don't. I love beach balling. I love tangenting.
Mhm.
So if there's any subject that kind of pops up and you're like, ooh, that's interesting, let's nail that down or whatever, I'm super happy to jump all over the place. I think my chat's used to my attention deficit disorder at this point.
I got a bit of ADD myself, so that's fine.
Yeah.
The thing that I was most oh, how's my mic sound, by the way?
It
Does it
actually
sound all right?
sounds great.
Okay.
I was just asking for the balance because I'm a fucking boomer, so sometimes
Yeah.
people are super loud and I'm super quiet. But yeah,
Okay.
it sounds great to me.
Awesome. Well, the thing that the reason I wanted to bring up that subject is I felt like, with you being center right and me being left, we may even have some crossover on that subject as far as on the basics of how electoral politics work, and what's wrong with them in today's day and age. So one of the things that I was really interested in talking about was the money in politics for one, and how that affects voting rights for people in the country, and also things like the filibuster and how that affects different
Oh,
types of
what you
legislation.
don't have the destiny take that people can pour endless amounts of money into politics and it's not a big deal and don't worry about it?
Yeah,
Like
no, I do not have
that's
that
not your
view at
take?
all.
Oh, are you
Not at
sure?
all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No, no,
no.
and see, dude, this is my frustration. So let me. I want to get at it from two angles, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So the one angle is, I think I'm with you that like on a moral basis, it just makes sense that if somebody is dumping money into politics, then obviously they're going to get listened to more than people who don't have money, right?
Exactly.
I think that is a fair assessment of reality.
Hmm.
But then I do have a question, kind of, or at least I fight myself on this.
Okay.
The basically my concern is if money is used as a weather vane to figure out like where people are at and how much they care about something, then is like money and effort and all that kind of stuff actually like an okay metric to go by? And then if it's not, then what do we do? Just popularity? And then if we're doing popularity, I'm not a direct democracy kind of person.
Hmm.
So I'd kind of be curious about like where your passions lie with that
Sure.
subject.
So I think in a perfect world, money in politics would be an okay thing, but we're not in a perfect world. We're in a world where there's an extreme amount of inequality financially, in other areas as well. So it's something like that we need to take into account, that maybe the representatives of this country shouldn't be beholden to people with large amounts of money, because then over half of the country are not going to get represented in the way that they're supposed to be represented, right? So you have uh, companies like ExxonMobil and the military-industrial complex feeding money into these politicians. I mean, you can kind of see some of this stuff. I mean, I have some strong views on Ukraine and the situation going on in Russia, for instance. But I think that we should probably, if they've asked for our help, help them. But at the same time, I do know that there are a lot of incentives for the military industrial complex to have this happen as well too. So I don't think that they're completely neutral when they're talking to our politicians in Congress, and also to the president. So it
Well, yeah, so actually I wouldn't mind picking your brain on this because this
Okay.
is another thing that I wrestle with. So we are the beneficiaries. I'm a military veteran
Hmm.
actually, and I kind of struggled because there was like a real GI Joe kind of like narrative to the American military, right? Which is
Hmm.
especially in the 90s. I think I'm a little bit younger than you, but not much younger. And so basically the narrative goes Americans are the underdogs. We're the cowboys, right? And then World War II happens, and those evil Nazis try to liquidate all the Jews, and then the American saviors come in to save the day, but too late. And then we try to save the Jews, and then ever since then we've been like the moral authority on the world stage, trying to defeat evil communism. And then not only that, but up until the defeat of communism, we've done some shady shit, but it was all justified in the end. And now we're like the world police. That's kind of like the narrative that I was told as a kid. But then it was weird as hell, because you have this like underdog mentality, but you're not an underdog. You're a
Hmm.
fucking empire.
Oh yeah.
And so that's where for me, on one hand, I want to be critical of the empire. On the other hand, I see it as like a necessity for like global trade. So how do you parse that out mentally?
Sure, and I mean you can kind of see this with China, how there's like cognitive dissonance with how we deal with China, where we are one of their largest trade partners, but at the same time we condemn them in many ways as well. We especially, well, a lot of times during the Trump administration, he was kind of back and forth with them. It's kind of one of those things where um you have to kind of, I don't know if you can completely compartmentalize things, but at the same time you kind of have to. Now with Russia, it's a little bit of a different story. There's like some active aggression going on there that I believe is something that we should be past in the 21st century, right? Like the military annexation of countries. I think that's typically a no-no for most of the world. Like they tend to believe that these days. It still happens in smaller countries and things like that, but in the
So you're not from the
westernized.
Hassan Piker. You're not from the Hassan Piker like school of geopolitics that like actually it was Russia's all along, and it's actually
Yeah,
based like
no,
Russians
no,
annex.
no, and
Okay.
I've actually had some major issues with his takes on this as of late. I align, probably I've watched some content of Bosch's that I align with a little
Mhm.
bit, as far as how he sees that he's pretty much sure that there's some shady business going on with Russia. I mean, I just did a story about how they're amassing helicopters like 50
Mhm.
miles from the border right now. There's a bridge that popped up out of nowhere overnight that's connecting certain areas for strategic purposes. And then there's all the allegations of false flags and attacks from the Ukraine, things like that. So it just seems like Putin's trying to set himself up so that he can be the victim in order to go in and do this annexation. Is what it looks
Well,
like to me.
and then I guess that's my question is so how do you feel about that like rift in that civil war? Because it seems like there's people who do, um, they do like a consistent moral calculus
Hmm.
where if somebody is doing something wrong, it doesn't matter who's doing it, it's wrong. That's one way to view the world. And then it seems like other people are doing like a political calculus where they're like, oh, well, it's against the American empire and I'm against the American empire, therefore it's based. So like how
Where
do you feel about like well, the reason why I'm asking this is because like with lefties in particular, it seemed like in righties too, they claim like a certain amount of like moral authority where they're like, we're so good, look at how bad the other side is,
mhm.
and we're not like that. But then it seems to me like in these kinds of scenarios, you can see like, oh no, there's actually like a decent chunk of dumbasses like everywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, and I was just talking about this today. For instance, the Ukraine has a lot of white supremacists in it, for instance, right? Like
Hmm.
there's a big show of that in their military as well. Like there's a lot of people who are involved in white supremacist groups that are part of the Ukrainian military, more so in the, like, I guess, insurgency areas
Hmm.
that are to the east. But still, I mean, it's something like you kind of have a moral conundrum there. Like, should we? But you can't think of those people as a monolith either. At the same time,
Is it okay for Russian imperialists to annex Ukrainian Nazis? Like
yeah.
what's the calculus here?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so, well, and I know, okay, so I am nowhere near a fan of Russia. I don't think that I think Putin is, my guess is his goal is to kind of do some reformation of the USSR, as it was
Mhm.
before the fall of the Berlin Wall and the splitting up of the USSR as a whole. So I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to kind of move in that area, and he's also trying to, I think, show some aggression towards NATO in
Mhm.
certain ways, so that he can kind of have a straw man for the types of things that he's doing. But then on the other hand, and I just think that anybody who's in a position where they're being taken over or annexed, now I might not agree with some of the politics in that country, but I still think that we should probably do something to help them. Now, whether we should put troops on the ground there is a different story. I think that's
Mhm.
probably something that's a little bit more of a nuanced conversation, and something that we probably shouldn't do yet, because there's nukes are involved
Yeah.
on both sides. So it's a very touchy situation, but I don't think it's nothing like Hassan is making it out to be, for instance.
Well,
um
swinging this back to democracy.
mhm,
So would you? We can go into any like specific frame you want. But oftentimes I find leftists are very pro like direct democracy, like one person, one vote. They view the
mhm,
college as antiquated. They don't really like the representative system because they think that the representative system is kind of like how we've been corrupted in the first place. So for me, my concern is like the democratic seesaw,
mhm,
where on one hand you could have a lot of people who are like gung ho after 9/11, where we're like, hey, yeah, let's go kill everybody. It's going to be fucking awesome. And then, you basically shit stomp the planet. And then 5 years later, you're like, oh, turns out war is actually kind of like disgusting and hard. Let's get the fuck out. And then that's kind of my fear is that like while memes of the deep state are it's a very easy target to say everybody who's in power is a piece of shit, and if we were in charge we would do it better. um my fear with that kind of attitude is that I feel like direct democracy, particularly when it comes to like crises and war, can almost be worse. So how do you feel about like
okay, well, so I'm
representation and the way our system is now?
sure. I'm a big advocate of. I'm not a big fan of the electoral college. I think
Mm.
that in this day and age, with as connected as the country is, land shouldn't be able to vote necessarily. Like, I mean, of course we need to listen to the interests of everybody, and decide what's best for the country. But I think there's a little bit too much of a belief that just leftists live on in California, or just people on the right live in Alabama, right? Like, I'm smack dab in the middle of the country here, and I live in a pretty purple area. With our local politics, it's usually Republicans who win. Uh, and
Hmm.
we've had some pretty good, uh, more left leaning people that have run, that have gotten some national attention too. Uh, so there's some I guess I got a weird view of things, that people think that because they live in a heavily red or heavily blue district, that if it's one person, one vote, that there'll be certain areas that are left out necessarily. I think that if it kind of will even out in the long run in many places, if you're voting, with that just one vote, one. And I maybe there's something we can do as well, like ranked choice voting or something like that, that may
Hmm.
even the system out a little bit as well. But I think that that would be the type of way to go, is to be more of, get rid of the electoral college. I would be okay with getting rid of the Senate, to be honest. I just
Hmm.
feel like in this day and age, there's such a blockade to legislation on both sides. It seems like that we're gridlocked. There's nothing that we can do, and so government's becoming to the point where it's not functional anymore. So what the hell is the point? And this is me getting doomer on you, I guess, a little bit. But what the hell is the point if we can't have uh, things that the people overwhelmingly want as a majority, but can't pass through Congress or through the Senate? For instance, a lot of the Build Back Better plan, when it was talked about individually, for instance, a lot of those provisions were overwhelmingly, with Democrats and Republicans, popular. But when you talk about it as like the Build Back Better plan as a whole, there is a certain, like, kind of division that comes in the country because it's like the Democrats
Can
versus the
you
Republicans.
Yeah, can you actually provide examples of the more popular things? Because in the era of inflation, I think it would actually be interesting to talk about
Mhm.
what were some of the more popular provisions that you're like, hey, most people agree with this. We should have just passed it
Well,
instead of fucking with it.
yeah,
Like what?
the child care
Mm.
provisions, that was a
Okay.
big one. I believe that paid leave and things like that for that they were talking about for uh, expecting mothers and fathers as well. I don't think that fathers get enough time at all in this country when they have a child born. You know, I think a
Yeah.
lot traditionally, like even conservatives say, you know, it takes a mother and a father in the household, right? So why not give that time for the both of them to
No,
bond?
dad needs to work 60 hours a week or
Yeah,
else he's not a
yeah,
real man. Like what you basically just have to be a fucking paycheck
yeah,
for your family or else you're a fucking pussy.
right.
That was the dumbest shit. And like by the way, for like I know we have a couple of social conservatives in chat or whatever. Basically what I would say is one of the evolutions that I want to see in the right and conservative America in general is the recognition that economically healthy families are the building block of the country. If you want your stupid fucking plastic goddamn toys to get bought, then mom and dad need sufficient paychecks to be able to buy the toys for Timmy. And if you're making him fucking work like slave wages and slave hours, can't do that shit. So that's where for me it's like I know everybody kind of wants to get back to the 1950s because they, love milkshakes and racism. Um, I want to get back to the milkshakes, but not the racism. So that's kind of my thing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I mean there's some social aspects like I was just talking today about how it seems like relationships were a little bit more uh some of the traditional things weren't so that bad about them. Like, you know, it seemed like that there was a lot more affection and love for each other back then in a more formal way, which was kind of cool in a way, I guess. Like now it's like everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off on Tinder trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, you know? So I think that's
So how did that take over in your leftist circles?
well, I had actually explicitly said something about I wouldn't want to go back to this time, you know, but
But
yeah, but but I think that some of the dating rituals back then were better than they are in the age of Tinder, for instance.
they
Yeah,
were they're at least predictable, right? And
right.
so even if you were like, hey, there's some toxic shit to this,
Hmm.
there's a certain level of expectation whereas I think you're right now it's the fucking Wild West.
Yeah.
And I think we're paying some consequences for that culturally and socially.
Well, yeah. There's
Um,
there's definitely
mhm.
something to be said about uh touching grass, meeting people in person, you know, and stuff like that, like actually going out and being in the world. I feel like the more important connections I've made with people have been in those situations, you know. Uh,
Yeah, can I point out my thrust for the direct democracy thing
sure.
is I think one of the intuitively obvious things that we're taught as kids, but like it's obviously hard to demonstrate like politically because everybody wants to fucking study, right? The thing about it is like the how do you stop like the ice cream effect? You know what I'm saying? And what I mean by that is like you have politicians who come up and they say, "Hey, listen, put me in charge. We'll have nap time every day. Every day will be pizza day. Every day will be ice cream day, and it's gonna kick ass." And then
Hmm.
obviously people love naps, pizza, and ice cream. And of course I'm like memeing a little bit. I'm just using like student body council as a fucking example.
Sure.
But the point being that there are like real incentives for people to not think long term, not think coherently, not think using logistics and logistics or limits or anything like that, and to kind of just promise themselves the world, but not be able to actually deliver. And oftentimes, when it comes to left wing collapse, I know that the CIA is responsible for every left wing government collapsing in the history of the world, and that actually, if the CIA didn't exist, it would all be based in red pilled. But that being said, it does seem like there's so for instance, like Venezuela is like, hey, we're going to eradicate child poverty, we're going to give everybody a laptop, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But then when you base your economy based off of like a nationalized version of petroleum, and then you have a single commodity that props this up, and then you get fucked over on that commodity, it seems like everything falls to shit.
Sure.
So my question is, if in a direct democracy, if we eliminated the Senate, if we had a more representative democratic forum, how do you avoid the perverse incentives of leaders just being like, vote for me and I'll give you cool shit?
Sure. Well, and that's what what I think the ranked choice voting would help with. First of all, second of all, and are you familiar with the concept of ranked choice voting?
Yeah, it's kind of like you can pick your favorite candidate, but you can also pick like
Second,
a
third,
backup as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Some of
Yeah.
so you can in a lot of them you can go straight down the row and vote for all
Mm.
or whoever you want to. But you list them in order, and as many candidates there are. But the and so there's different values for each section or each position you put them in. So I think that would help a little bit. But I think we still need a representatives or otherwise things get too muddy. Like you can't have
Mm.
the population voting on policy. I think that would get a little messy, right? So
Can you tell the other lefties on Twitch, because I swear to God some of them actually fucking believe that like we need a 51-49 vote on fucking like environmental issues and economic issues. And like I know that's not most people and some of these people are fucking children. But at the same time, could you like spread the word, because it
yeah,
like holy
yeah.
shit. Like
Well, and
some people say that shit and I want to fucking die.
another thing, and I don't know how exactly we get to this point, but I think it would be best if we had a more diverse electorate as far as parties are concerned. Like this two-party system
Mm,
shit is just not working. I mean, it's clogging things up because it's split right down the middle. Which, and I think that there's even you can kind of see it in our elected officials right now. It almost
mm.
seems like there's two separate Republican parties and two separate Democratic parties by the way that
Yeah.
their ideologies are split. For instance, you've got your more conservative, old school Republicans, and then you've got your MAGA people, right? And then you've
Mm,
got the on the left, you've got the Bernie Sanders crowd and the squad and the leftists, and then you've got your more corporate Nancy Pelosi's and you know your more establishment Democrats as well. So it feels like that's already split but they're still trying to vote on one party, which is even bigger problem because not only is there a split down the middle between Republicans and Democrats, but there's often a split in the party as well. So it's gridlock everywhere. I just think that the Senate kind of musses things up a little bit, but I do think that we do need a representatives to handle policy for the most part. Now, I think
mm.
there was less or no money in politics whatsoever, then it would be a situation where uh, we would go a long way gaining trust back in the government with that. And I feel like that people would actually do what a little bit more of what they say they're going to do when they are elected and represent the people.
Yeah, so what do you say to like Destiny, for instance, who says like, "Hey, we already have a diversity of representation because we have caucuses, and even if like we were going to try to like improve the system or whatever, ultimately what you're talking about is these caucuses breaking up into different groups basically. So that's kind of like his argument where it's like, oh well, we already have. To be fair, I'm just articulating this because, like, I'm trying to bring up a counter argument for the hope that you've said it.
Hmm.
But he's also done like just world fallacy argumentation to me in the past, where he's like, "Well, this is the way it is," and I'm like, "Is that good though?" And he's like, "Yeah, but this is the way it is," and it's like, okay, that tells me fucking nothing, you know.
Right.
So I guess my question is, do you not acknowledge like the diversity of the caucuses? Do you think that it limits the threshold of what can be presented legislatively? Like, what's the downside to having the leftists trapped in with the Democrats? Like, what would they be able to do separate from themselves? Because even if they were separate and they formed a party, they would still be beholden to having to build coalitions. So what would be new about
Sure,
that?
sure. So, well, and I think that there would be some crossover. I mean, if you look at, for instance, even Canada's system, they've got like several parties that do get seats in Congress, or their version of
Mm.
Congress, of Parliament, and they basically will kind of work across the aisle with each other when they're closer to that particular party's perspective values, right? So
Mm.
you've got what is it, the NDP, and
Mm.
then the leftist parties. They kind of interchange and work together. Again, with ranked choice voting, that would make it easier for them to kind of work together as well. But I think what would happen is if the progressive left was split off from the Democratic Party, for instance, I think it would only give it a chance to grow and get more voices involved. I think that it would take a little bit for
Mm.
there to be some actual power that was gained by that, but I think it would be a little bit more democratizing. Same thing with on the right. I think that I have this feeling, and I'm
Is
not
that good?
well.
Because on the right, the populist right is MAGA. Like
Right, 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 right.
the
And
corporate right
that's what I was gonna say is
is
there's different tactics
the
for both because when we have it this way, the way that it's set up, so that there are essentially two different factions of each party, there are ways that are good and bad about it. If you really look at the landscape for an election, for instance, uh, you have your progressive voters and you have your establishment voters, right? But they only like primaries, for instance, those aren't going to work together very well, right? But when it comes to uh, when they're already in Congress, it may be a different situation. And
yeah. Can I? No, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, and with the right, it is. I think the right has been so galvanized for so many years, and now we're just kind of seeing this split happen between them, and it would be kind of interesting to see what happens with as that continues on, and what that's going to do.
On honestly, what's scary? Do you know what's fucking scary is being like right wing and more sympathetic to like the corporate people or like the sensible people or the moderate people, and then you just absolutely fucking know that if you did not have the sobering effect of the boring ass fucking fogey moderates, the MAGA would just dominate. Like
Yeah.
that. That's my thing. Is like, you're arguing from a leftist perspective that you're like, hey. I think it would actually be cool to break off the leftists because I think they would do better on their own than
Hmm.
instead of being muted by the Democrats. But for me, it's like uh, I'm a centrist. I'm like I believe in like corporate power to some extent, and I want these moderating effects to occur. Now maybe it's too moderating, right? Because we do have like serious problems that we have to deal with that we're not dealing with.
Hmm.
But also it's like fuck, dude. Like I see the dumber parts of the left and right. And I get worried about what they would do with power,
Yeah.
like very worried.
Oh, for sure.
And then I guess that's my thing is like no offense, like we're having a great conversation, but I'm maybe breaking 100 because people don't like good faith conversations. If I was screaming at you and calling you a piece of shit, we could easily get into 100,
Yeah.
but the people who are wildly popular, like Hassan, they're dumb as fuck and their perspectives suck, and yet they're wildly popular. It's to me like populism is a fucking like uh, part of my distrust of direct democracy is my distrust of the average person. It's I
Hmm.
am elitist in the sense that I think above average and average intelligent people are fucking stupid, myself included. So I have no hope for the average person, uh, or below average person.
Yeah,
So
I typically think that I just I guess in the last 2 years started really getting into the leftist online left, basically, and seeing the uh dichotomy between the online left and the online right. I mean, I watched a lot of everything, but I think
mhm,
that a lot of it is for the clicks, for the clout.
mhm,
It is going to be drama that's exacerbated for the sake of getting views and things like that a lot of time, which is within cancel culture. Sometimes it's a little bit of a dangerous game, I guess, but it seems like that's becoming something that's more and more prevalent on both sides of the fence, as far as with the left and the right, not necessarily with the right fighting with each other, but I think on the
Yeah, but
left.
can I share my nightmare with you?
Yeah.
So my nightmare is Twitch politicians.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I see that coming.
But yeah, Twitch and Twitter politicians. So it's not shit. I'm trying to think of how to phrase why it would be more dangerous. The For me, the popularity is part of the danger, because it can become like a positive and negative feedback cycle where people are just saying whatever they know will get them attention with their faction, and it becomes like incredibly masturbatory, whereas a lot of people who will go to war with their audiences aren't as rewarded algorithmically or rewarded by their audiences. You know what I'm saying? So that's my fear, is kind of like the runaway train of populism with like I was joking, but every day we'll have nap time and ice cream sundaes. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my fear, is that popular dumb dickheads will become the rule, not the exception.
Sure, and I get that. There's like kind of the mob rules kind of thing, where
Mm.
people kind of don't have a lot of faith in humanity myself a lot of times. So it's kind of like seeing like a mob be able to say, yeah, we want everything free, is one thing, but I do think that there's a balance there somewhere within a framework that everybody can kind of agree with.
Yeah,
And
I wanna ask you another black pill question
okay.
too. So basically, like, I think it's fun and sometimes entertaining to like challenge your preconceived notions about the way our system works, and is this the way that it really needs to be and stuff.
Sure.
Like, I'm cool with all of that. But at the same time, like, what it would actually take for us to, let's say, get money out of politics, ban the Senate, and basically move to still a representative government, but a closer to the people representative government. What that would actually take is like a complete reformation of our system.
Oh yeah.
That would take like borderline like an environmental catastrophe or a revolution to take place.
Sure, and I
So,
don't think that we're
sorry, go
too
ahead.
far off from that, though. To be honest, like it within,
Really?
yeah, well, in many aspects, like socially, and then also, I do see a lot of problems with climate change. I mean, so I live in an area. It's weird because the climate, changing of the climate that I've noticed over in my area is kind of it's more it's almost a positive thing, because our winters have gotten much shorter, for instance, and it's a bad thing for the people who plow snow, for instance. They're not making any fucking money at all. But those are, it almost scares me at the same time, because I know that once fucking Florida falls into the ocean, or some giant hurricanes happen, everybody's gonna migrate to where I'm at, and it's gonna be like a climate refugee haven, and then it's gonna be a situation where, yeah.
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 Yeah, gonna be moving to Based, Idaho. I am so excited.
Yeah.
Dude, I was literally Googling Twin Rivers, Idaho today, because somebody was like, yeah, Boise is beautiful. There's not that many people. And then I started Googling photos, and I'm like, man, that looks cold as fuck. But
Yeah.
besides that, it looks beautiful.
Yeah,
Um,
it's one of those
yeah.
situations where, like, I just feel like so there's some things that are inevitable, like climate change. I feel like that we're not gonna skirt past that one. So we're gonna get affected by it some way, whether it's harshly or not so harshly, is up to us. But the division in this country, I think that can be changed a little bit easier than climate change can be, but it's still something that's kind of tearing the country apart right now in many
But
ways.
you do think, just to clarify, you do think it's potentially bad enough for us to literally say our system is fucked. We have to
Oh,
start
okay.
like
So
literally from
yeah, I
scratch.
was getting into that. What I was going to say is that I feel like the early warning signs are here, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I don't think that we're at a point right now where everybody's just going to be able to like. We're not going to get everybody to throw up their hands and be like, okay, fuck it, let's do something, let's change, let's update the Constitution, whatever. I don't think that there's I think that's going to probably take something like that, or either that, or it's going to be a more gradual situation where there's more checks and balances put into place, and slowly but surely we're able to whittle away at some of the lobbying and stuff like that that's going on in politics in our country. And then eventually there might be it'll give a little bit more. And I think that like some of the older politicians and older people in this country that are holding on to archaic views are dying off too. So like you see the younger generation coming up, they have there's a little bit more coalesced ideal of what the world should be.
Well, I was gonna ask about that because I do meme about like boomer side often on my channel.
Hmm.
And like obviously I love my parents, they're from the baby boomer generation. I don't want them to ever die. I love them dearly. But it does seem like you said there's a lot of things that to us seem 30 years overdue that don't seem politically possible because of boomers. And I'm pretty sure Gen X is actually a relatively small generation. And then that kind of means that Gen X and millennials will be in the driver's seat probably in the next 20 years.
Oh yeah.
So then that's kind of the question is like, are some of these things literally just generational shifts? That's kind of my not my concern, but I'm wondering if that's gonna like if it's borderline gonna save us, because when we're talking about that, basically I don't think like anybody under the age of 50 except for like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh give a fuck about marijuana. I literally don't. Like I think most people view it like yes, it's potentially bad. It could have some effects like alcohol, but should we be throwing teenagers and young adults in jail for it? Absolutely not.
Sure.
I think pretty much everybody is at that stage.
Yeah,
Then
absolutely.
and then I was trying to think about like even with climate change, I understand that there's a really strong lobby that's been using conservatives as a shield against like the popularity of electrics and the popularity of renewables and all that kind of stuff. But I'm also wondering if they were just like buying regulatory time so they could develop the technology because basically, we just went through the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl, there was like fucking 8 different commercials for like electric pickup trucks and electric cars and like all that kind of shit. The
Sure.
the writing kind of feels on the wall
Yeah, that's
when
definitely the
it comes to that
case.
shit.
I think the problem, like, okay, so electric cars are fine. Like I think that they're a great thing, but they're not going to solve any climate change issues if we don't change the infrastructure of how we like generate power in this country either. Because it's
Mhm.
it's a situation where, well, we're still feeding off of the grid with the electric vehicles, so we're still using oil to produce the energy that goes into the grid. So it's kind of a, it's not doing as much for the environment as it could be if we were
But how do you feel about nukes though?
like nuclear weapons or nuclear power plants.
Yeah, power plants.
Power plants. I think that they could be a good. I don't think that there should be one solution. I think that we could use
Mhm.
a combination of solar power, nuclear power, and wind power, hydroelectric, things like that. We could use a lot of those different things to kind of more decentralize our grid a little bit too, so that way that when stuff like that, what happened in Texas when there was that snow, doesn't happen. For instance, I think that that would be a good way to do things. Eventually, I think that we might figure out fusion, but it's always 10 years in the future. So
Yeah. The so what I was gonna bring up too, because I'm like a fucking political genius who has solved all of the world's problems, and I'm gonna take credit for them in a few years. So the one of
counterpoints
the
for
things,
president.
yeah, I mean, like I would as long as you don't like clip me out of context when I'm talking about Victoria's Secret models with Down syndrome. That's totally fine. But the point being that like I my frustration is I feel like so I know that everybody likes to fucking jerk themselves off on like Twitch and Twitter about how we're so important, and then it boils down to drama, and we kind of vacillate between are we the future of political discourse where we're going to hash out ideas online, those ideas are going to become popular, and then they actually impact our culture? Or is this like a giant fucking wank fest where a bunch of fucking nerds just argue with each other endlessly to no result? We seem to like bump between those two, right?
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
somewhere in the middle. Like,
yeah, me too.
yeah, it's a fluctuation. It happens like, where there's certain people who.
Just like any pop culture.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And eventually I think that, there's going to be something new that comes out, like, we're all going to be in a more decentralized, like, I would like to see, like, I don't like the metaverse thing whatsoever, but I would like to see something that what is more decentralized, to where we could actually go into these environments and talk to people one on one. I think it would add some more empathy to an online experience if we were able to do that. But for the
Yeah,
most
can
part.
I yeah, sorry. So I wanted to bring this up. So you were talking about like reorganizing what is it? Like just energy infrastructure.
Mhm,
But I was being even more, or wanted to be even more aggressive than that. I think when it comes to the way that we design cities and living spaces, we basically need to completely rethink.
mhm,
And one of the like I said, I'm a fucking genius. So one of the things that I want to do is basically like the American shopping mall, right? Um, Obviously, you can, like there's a whole bunch of infrastructure challenges for why you can't just like literally gut malls and turn them into housing and shit. But if you think about that conceptually, where you turn the corners of the mall into like apartment, high density housing, condos, all that kind of stuff, and you could scale it for different incomes, different classes, different needs, different abilities, all that kind of stuff. You could literally design with every single person in mind, and then have a walkable interior, commercial and public space where basically you have access to schools, access to daycare, access to this, and it's all walkable.
mhm.
And then have the parking on the exterior. You could basically live and die an entire life within this like habitation center, but then you would significantly reduce the amount of carbon that you're putting in the air through transportation. You would have more communal settings, so you wouldn't have old people living in 1,500 square foot houses and dying alone. You would basically be able to centralize and accumulate wealth for a lot of people. And if we designed housing with like human happiness in mind, I think we could do a really kick-ass job. But just no, only a few people are talking or thinking about this right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of oh gosh, what's it called? The Venus Project.
Is it that where they're gonna build like literally places in the sky of Venus?
No, 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 no. The Venus Project was there was an older gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he'd been working on it for years and years and years, and it was
Mm-hmm.
basically a way to plan cities around modular environments. So it's exactly pretty much what you're saying right now. So that there
Nice.
would be a central hub, and then there would be modular sections throughout that are have equal amounts of residential and commercial and industrial areas within them. They'd have their own farms. He was talked a lot about high rise farms, like indoor farms and things like
Yeah.
that.
No,
Um,
and wouldn't that kick some serious fucking ass to
yeah,
be able to be like so for instance like on one thing like I love talking to nerds all over the fucking planet, but wouldn't it kick some ass to literally have some fucking nerds within walking distance where you're like, "Yo, you want to meet up like at the gaming center? Do you want to meet up at the I don't know, fucking paintball park or some shit?"
sure.
And instead of it being like a 40-minute drive because it takes a fucking act of Congress to get like any 30-year-olds all in the same place at the same time. It's just a fucking walk. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
literally a walk.
Yeah,
And
and
and so
you said that
sorry, go ahead.
about malls too, about how there's a lot of old malls dying and things like that, and they're being
Mhm.
restructured. That's actually happening in my. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, so
Mm.
I'm close to Destiny himself, actually.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, why do all you got? Because I have a friend named Nate Dallin. He's a lawyer in Omaha, and it just seems like like when how do I phrase this? You know when like Canadians have too many fucking Canadians who are in American pop culture, so it's like it's suspicious. Like
Yeah.
it's like the Jewish question, but with Canadians. I'm starting to fucking wonder about like Omaha, Nebraska, because like you're like the third fucking political nerd I've met from Omaha who fucking loves like debates and online politics.
Oh
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
that's super fucking
Oh,
interesting.
I have a couple of friends who do too. There's a guy that I talk with at my day job he actually knows you and is a big fan of like watching the Hippy Dippy and stuff like that too. So
Nice.
we
So
nerd out about that
we
stuff too.
no, we need to start asking the Omaha question. There's something going on. So no,
The
but
but
yeah,
there's
sorry.
a old there's a mid or a central mall in
Mhm,
the city that recently was
mhm,
torn down, and they're actually doing that. They're building a whole center area where there's like
mhm,
apartment buildings and lofts, and then like everything's right there. And there's a school fairly close, like elementary school and a high school fairly close, but they're not actually in the thing. But I think if they went that
mhm.
far, that would be cool, to kind of keep everything in that area.
Well, and
But
I'm this is the kind of shit where like I don't should I be scared? Should I be shitting my pants? Should I be hopeful about the future? Like I have no idea what to fucking think because it's like on one hand it seems like all our infrastructure is on a fucking runaway train and nobody above the age of 30 gives a fuck about planning for the future and they're the ones with all the concentrated money. And then on the other hand it seems like there's a lot of kick-ass ideas that are bubbling up through the internet that could actually change the world for the better. And I don't know what to do about that.
sure, and when there's places that you can think of that and that are less developed in around the world that might get a heads up on or a head start on some of that stuff because they're not so developed right now, or like you can kind of see that like after like war torn like areas of Japan
Mhm.
and things that have happened there like over in the middle of Europe and things, that there's a lot of new developments happening over there simply because their infrastructure was torn apart and they had to start from the scratch, right? I'm not saying
Yeah.
that we should do that, but I'm saying that like at this point where our infrastructure is at such a shit position, maybe we should actually go out and research the newest things that we can do to make the infrastructure better. For instance, there's a we were talking about energy earlier. I know there's a lot of places in I think it's in Korea where they have kinetic roads. So people as they're walking down the city streets, their footsteps are actually generating energy for the buildings around them. Uh,
Yeah, and we obviously have to look at like efficiency and shit because I think there's like some ideas that are a little bit like too aggressive. So for instance, I was trying to think about one of them. There was something that like people invested in and then it actually ended up being like a net loss and then the depreciation was like faster than you would actually get a positive. I don't know if the kinetic roads are like that or not. But at the same time, like there's so much opportunity, and I'm kind of like sad that people who are older than me, who have power and wealth and influence, not only do they seem like ignorant of these ideas or these concerns, they seem completely dismissive of them too. Like literally, I'm having there's a new like basically like a old commercial area is being torn down and they're just building a new road and quarter acre lots with 1,500 square foot homes or 3,000 square foot mansions. And
yeah.
it's like, dude, like what the fuck? Like
Well,
why are we doing
I
this?
think
Like
a
what
lot of them
why
they're
couldn't we rethink something new here?
Yeah, I think a lot of them there's two they are of the mind, well fuck, I'm not going to be around to enjoy any of this shit anyways, so why don't I just make as much money off of it as possible, right? So that could be some part of the motivation for that sort of thing. I
Mhm.
think that even in local politics, politicians get their backs rubbed and get their pockets filled, so I think
Yeah,
that
but how sad is that though? So I kind of want to ask about that because like um for me, I got a kid.
mhm.
And like a lot of these politicians have kids. A lot of these rich people have kids. So do they just assume that well, I mean like number one, fuck everybody else's kids, I guess.
Yeah.
But then two, are they just assuming that they're fucking rich enough that they'll be able to afford the lifeboats?
Yeah,
Because that's what it fucking feels
I
like.
do think that. Like, I just recently did a story on stream about Elon Musk and how he revealed in a call with his investors or with the board or something like that that when the panic over toilet paper happened at the beginning of the pandemic, that he actually took his kids to Walmart to kind of basically point and laugh at the people who were going crazy. And I think that's kind of the
Mhm.
mentality, is they're so padded by their wallets and their trust funds and their money that they don't really think that that's going to be something that's going to affect them in the future. I think there's some things that are inescapable though, like if we do let climate change get really bad, all of us are screwed. It doesn't matter. I don't think it's going to matter how much money you have, unless you go live on Mars, which you have to build a dome for anyways. Why not just build it here?
You dumb fuck.
Yeah.
Like why don't you save the planet you're on, you fucking idiot?
Right.
But my okay. So granted, and I do understand all of that. My frustration, I guess, is I feel like we could have leaders. I feel like we could have people who give a shit and kind of pay attention to all this stuff. And then it kind of like, it does almost like a surreality for me, where I'm like, well, I feel like if I was rich or powerful, or if I was in these positions, I would be speaking up and trying to make sure that the future actually did look better for future generations. So that like almost like it almost brings up the conspiracy in my mind, where I'm like, well, maybe it's not that bad, because all the people who are in charge aren't fucking like panicking and building lifeboats yet.
Yeah.
But then I don't know either.
But so I think that there are quite a few rich people that are
sounding the alarm.
Yeah, sounding the alarm. Yeah, that sort of thing. Like Bill Gates, for instance. I know he's given a lot of money to climate change initiatives and things like that.
But see, I thought that he was buying farms so he could like harvest child sex slaves, so he could drink their adrenochrome. I mean, like you say that you laugh, but then like I hear like the Epstein shit, and then I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe Bill Gates is fucking drinking the adrenochrome out of smoke.
Hanging out with Prince Andrew. So like I'm not a big fan of billionaires in any sense, but it's not like I think that they're necessarily bad people. I just think that a society that allows them to exist as billionaires, when there's so many people who are below the poverty line, there's some sort of disconnect there. Something we can do to fix that a little bit more. If everybody was above the poverty line and everybody had a comfortable life, I wouldn't have any problem with billionaires whatsoever. But I feel like that there's a almost automatic thing with a lot of the late stage capitalist problems that we have here, where it kind of siphons all the money to one side, whether we're trying to do that or not, right? Like all of it's being sucked to a small percentage of the population. And then there's
do you identify as like a socialist or like a social democrat, or like where do you
so I think that the end game would be like if I had the perfect world, it would be like true communism, all of like Star Trek, for instance, where everybody
luxury gay space communism.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's ever going to happen in my lifetime. What I would and I think that socialism is a good thing to reach for, as far as from the market socialism, not necessarily state socialism. I'm not necessarily on board with that, but market socialism, yeah. I think that with what we could do though to get to that point is we need to. Oh, did I reconnect? Hello? I think we had a freeze. Oh. See if I can get back on here. Did my internet go down?
You chat. Oh. So,
hello? Hey, we got you back. Yeah.
All right, cool.
My internet.
We are coming up on time, but I still wouldn't mind if you finish your thoughts, and then also if you want to shout yourself out again. We still got almost 105 people still going, which I think is impressive.
Sure.
We lost like 10 or 15 people on YouTube, and then we gained like 10 people on Twitch. So that's actually pretty cool nice. Night.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. For some reason, we had a break in internet service here for just a moment.
Well, you are in Omaha, Nebraska, so unless you have like
I knew that was gonna come up. Yeah. And I don't have Destiny money, so I can't afford the really, really good shit.
Yeah,
So
like he just like he like pays like the city to fucking do
yeah,
like fiber
it's
optic internet to his house
he
or some shit.
he's got
Yeah.
Elon Musk has 3 fucking satellites right over his house, so that's
Yeah, like geostationary
yeah,
satellites, so they stay there permanently. Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Uh,
Yeah, but yeah, why don't you finish your thought and then shout yourself out again, and then if you want to come back on
sure.
camera, that's cool, so you can
Yeah, let me do that real
wave
quick.
goodbye to everybody. But yeah,
Let's see here. There we go. Start virtual. There we go. All right. See
cool.
me? All right.
I do, I do, I
All
do.
right, sweet. So, oh gosh, what we were talking about something right before I.
We were talking about whether or not billionaires were selfish fucking
Oh
assholes,
yeah,
whether or
yeah,
not
yeah.
you were a social
So,
democrat
so
or a
yeah, so
socialist.
as I
Yeah.
was saying, so socialism, well, like I said, Star Trek communism would be the end game for me as far as a financial or economy society, things like that, where there's less crime in the world. Um, but basically, I think the best way to get there would be through changing capitalism, uh, bringing back some of the pre-Reagan, uh, 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 you know, uh, things that we had as provisions that we had on certain things like trading and the reporting of money. Uh,
Hmm.
Basically, just putting a check back on capitalism, because I
Hmm.
think that if it goes too rampant, then it will implode itself. And I think that people who are advocates of capitalism should probably see that too. That the direction we're going isn't going to be working out. They always say, socialism's never worked, which is true in a basis, not in a large scale like somewhere in America, right? It's not something that's been realized as of yet. So I think that in order to not completely lose the system we have, we need to make sure that we fix it. And a lot of
Can
the
I, yeah, can I tell you my frustration is I agree with you, and there's just like this theory that while everybody calls Franklin Roosevelt a fucking filthy goddamn redistributive economic commie, that basically fascism and communism were becoming so attractive worldwide that him implementing redistributive economics was what actually allowed America to thrive for another century with the free market system. And so my thing is, I'm trying to wake up like conservatives, social conservatives, fiscal conservatives, and all that kind of stuff. That if you gut a society and then it starts falling apart, you can't be fucking just like bootstrapping while the world is falling around, like falling apart around you.
sure,
There has to be a point where we find a like homeostatic equilibrium that involves like healthy and happy families making decent money so they can afford decent lives, because people who can't afford to survive are like fucking radical rocket fuel.
yeah.
They're fucking they're pawns to be manipulated by radical forces.
Well, unchecked consumption on the part of people who own most of everything, anyways, when they start hoarding money like they do, it's automatically going to siphon it off from the rest of the country, right? Like, or the working
Mhm.
class. And if the working class suffer to the point where they're not working anymore, or they're not producing anymore, or even worse, they revolt against society as a whole, or even violently revolt, what what's that going to do for them in the long run? Their game's going to be over. It's going to be like somebody's going to flip the table, basically, is what's happening. So if you want to keep the game
And
going, you're going to have
mhm.
to fucking fix the rules of the game a little bit,
Yeah, and then my frustration is just that like people are like, "Oh, well, I'm good." And it's like, "Cool, I don't give a fuck about you. I'm happy you're doing good. Like good for you, fuckface. There's plenty of other people besides you. So if
Sure.
everybody else is doing shit but you're doing good, that's a fucking problem."
And I think that's what people don't really understand is if we get to a point where we're if we all do good, all of us are going to do better. Like, it's just going to be a
Mhm.
situation where it's going to be all hands on deck for progress, and we're going to eventually be able to realize things that we want to, like, building a fucking city on Mars that, is sustainable to life, and maybe fixing our own goddamn planet on top of it. So,
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you. Well, we are wrapping up. I do want to answer chat's questions and concerns and all that kind of shit. So, if you could, I love the conversation. I'm happy that we kept it focused on how we could fix our society through democracy, but also kind of beach balled a little bit over all of our problems.
Yeah.
And then if you want to shout yourself out and give out your socials again, it would be appreciated.
Sure.
And yeah.
I'm Qizmhet. You can find me at Vertigo Veritas TV on Twitter, as well as YouTube and Twitch. So if you just search that, I did some big research when I started my channel and made sure that nobody had the same name. So if you just look those things up, you should be able to find me pretty easily.
Awesome. Well, thanks, buddy. Thanks for coming on. It was a great conversation. I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, yeah, let's do it again.
All right. Yeah. Maybe we'll see each other on Prime Kais or something like that sometime.
Fuck yes. I'm gonna try to adjust my schedule so I can start doing panel shows more often again. So yes,
For
let's
sure.
do it.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Catch ya.
That was a fucking fantastic conversation. I didn't know how that would go, how contentious it would be. Like I said, I always thought that he was good faith, and every conversation I've seen him have has been good faith. When he's talking to people, seems like a down to earth guy. Really glad that we got to do that. I'm probably gonna cut it short. It is midnight here already. I might just take a little bit of a break and play some video games off stream. My ass is kind of hurting from this chair. I need to get a new one. But thanks, guys. Make sure you hit me up. Give a like, give a subscribe, give a donation if you feel so inclined to do so. Give me money. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.